Get ready to be jolted out of the ordinary and into a world where conversations are charged with intensity and facts. The Lightning Strike Talk Radio with your host, Mohammed Faheem, broadcasting live from the heart of the city on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, WCPT 820 AM. Welcome to a radio show that charges through the airwaves with an electricity like no other. Here's your host, Mohammed Faheem.
Good morning, America. Back on the Lightning Strike with you this morning on February the 8th, and we've got a humdinger of a program lined up for you. We're going to have a lot of guests joining us, but I wanted to start off, folks, with my rant on what's happening in our country. This week, democracy didn't just face a policy debate, folks. It faced a test. A test of how far power can be expanded before it begins to consume the very principles it claims to protect. At the heart of that test was one testimony, Aliya Rahman, a Bangladeshi-American woman, a U.S. citizen, someone with autism and a traumatic brain injury, recounting how federal immigration agents shattered her window, ripped her from her vehicle, pinned her to the ground, and hauled her away during an enforcement surge in Minneapolis. She was on her way to a medical appointment. She posed no threat, and yet she was treated like an enemy, not a neighbor. This is happening in our country, folks. This is happening as we speak now. This was not a scene from a dystopian thriller. It was Minneapolis 2026. And Rahman didn't just tell her story in an anonymous press release. She took the stand before Congress in the very halls where justice and constitutional rights are supposed to be upheld, and detailed with chilling clarity the violence she endured and the degradation she witnessed in detention. I'm going to play a clip of her testimony after I finish speaking on this. I'm so upset today. This wasn't an isolated incident. Across Minneapolis and other cities nationwide, aggressive ICE and Department of Homeland Security enforcement has unfolded with alarming intensity under Operation Metro Surge, the largest federal immigration operation ever deployed in an American city. Thousands were arrested. Federal agents were deployed in numbers far beyond standard practice, and the consequences were deadly. 2 U.S. citizens were fatally shot by immigration agents. The administration insists it is enforcing the law and increasing public safety. But the evidence tells a different story, one of unchecked force, blurred lines between law enforcement and militarized action, and the targeting of communities, including citizens, with little regard for civil liberties. What is striking in all of this and deeply disturbing is not just the escalation of federal power, but the erosion of consent, restraint, and accountability. When federal officers drag a disabled citizen from her car, when agents remain in place despite protests and legal challenges, when detention becomes dehumanization, these are not mere errors or bureaucratic missteps. They are a pattern of governance that sidelines due process, suspends empathy, and elevates force over rights. Democracy is not measured by how a state treats the powerful. It is measured by how it protects the vulnerable. And here today, that protection is in question. When the state asserts its might against those without influence, people going about their daily lives like you and I, seeking medical care, living in their neighborhoods, it sends a message. Citizenship, identity, and vulnerability no longer shield you from the reach of power. This is not security, folks. This is intimidation. This is not enforcement. This is fear. And it doesn't begin or end in Minneapolis. Immigration raids continue quietly all over the United States now, in California, the Carolinas, Oregon, Washington, D.C., and beyond, carried out with little transparency and even less accountability. This is about immigration alone. It is about who the federal government answers to, about whether civil liberties are negotiable, and about whether the rights guaranteed on paper still mean anything in practice. When the government can detain its own citizens without charge after violent force, when it deploys agents in overwhelming numbers, when it resists scrutiny, that is not democracy in action, folks. That is democracy under siege. And we must name it as such. Because freedom is not defined by who it excludes, but by who it protects. I want to take a couple of seconds over here to play the testimony of Ms. Aliya Rahman, and I'm going to play the audio over here.
My name is Aliya Rahman, and I am a resident of South Minneapolis. I'm a Bangladeshi-American, born in northern Wisconsin, and I'm a disabled person with autism and a traumatic brain injury. Not all autistic brains do this, but mine fixates on sounds, numbers, and patterns. And while what the world saw happen to me exactly 3 weeks ago today on video was a terrible violation, it is still nothing compared to the horrific practices I saw inside the Whipple Center. So I am here today with a duty to the people who have not had the privilege of coming home. And I offer this data because these practices must end now. On January 13th, on the way to my 39th appointment at Hennepin County's Traumatic Brain Injury Center, I encountered a traffic jam caused by ICE vehicles and no signs indicating how to get around it. I had not wanted to pull into a blocked, chaotic intersection, but verbally agreed to do so and rolled down my window after an agent yelled, "Move! I will break your effing window!" His first instruction. Agents on all sides of my vehicle yelled conflicting threats and instructions that I could not process while watching for pedestrians. Then the glass of the passenger side window flew across my face. I yelled, "I'm disabled," at the hands grabbing at me, and an agent said, "Too late." I felt immersed in a pattern, and I thought of Genoa Donald, an autistic Black man killed by police during a traffic stop in 2021. I remembered Mr. Silverio Gonzalez, who was killed by ICE in his vehicle last year. An agent pulled a large combat knife in front of my face, which I thought was for cutting me, and later learned was used to cut off my seatbelt. Shooting pain went through my head, neck, and wrists when I hit the ground face first and people leaned on my back. I felt the pattern, and I thought of Mr. George Floyd, who was killed 4 blocks away. I was carried face down through the street by my cuffed arms and legs while yelling that I had a brain injury and was disabled.
Okay, folks, this is gut-wrenching. I don't want to play it anymore. But this is happening in our country. In our country to American citizens. And what are we supposed to do about it? Well, the midterm elections are coming, and that is so important for us to have our voice in here and show this government that when we say it's the government of the people, by the people, for the people, we are the people, and we're going to take our country back from these people. And we'll be joined shortly by our person of the week, and then we have got Maria Peterson joining us. Maria, good morning.